and welcome to Bless Davis. We're out here on the second Tuesday of the month because it's Blue Water Task Force Tuesday. So we have volunteers throughout the sound going around and collecting water samples to check for enterococcus, so harmful bacteria that you don't want to be swimming in. So let me flip our camera around, and we have a mid-outgoing tide. I just had a diver come out of the water. And so one of the reasons why we do this winter sampling is we know that people play in the Puget Sound year round, and checking to see if the water is safe for humans to play in is something that we think is really important and a valuable thing to do. It's also nice to know that the creatures, just had either a harbor seal or a sea lion go down out there, are also having good water to play in. Something that was kind of interesting with this sampling is our results definitely picked up on a sewage spill that was occurring in the Theophos waterway. If anybody's subscribed to the Enviro News alerts, you probably saw that there was a water advisory warning, and that was definitely something we were seeing in our samples. And luckily they got a sewage spill all fixed up and have returned turned the advisory off, so water is back to safe playing levels, which is ideal for those folks who are either paddleboarding or kayaking. Maybe you've been doing some polar plunges or open water swimming or scuba diving, whatever it is that's, gets you out here enjoying this beautiful place. If you're on the water, you want to know it's safe. And so again, that's why we do Blue Water Task Force. You can see it's a beautiful day. There hasn't been a lot of rain recently, so hopefully our samples throughout the sound are good. I'm seeing this weird scuzz layer kind of float in. That's kind of looking gross. So that's something I will note in our notes section at this site. But it is nice that we are on a lower tide, so we can actually look at some of the creatures here. But before we do that, I'm going to go ahead and take care of some business. We're going to test the temperature of the water. Right now the air is in the 45 degrees Fahrenheit range, which I'm going to guess the water is probably pretty close to the same. Oh, the water is warmer than the air currently. That's always a funny thing about winter in the Puget Sound. All right, so we're in the, kind of bouncing between 46.4 to 46.67. So we'll do kind of an average in there. Perfect. Get that recorded. And let's take a look at what we have going on in the intertidal zone of this place. So again, we're at the dive steps here at the Les Davis Pier in Tacoma, Washington. And these dive steps offer access to safely kind of maneuver your way through this riprap, which provides lots of habitat for all sorts of cool sea creatures, like this lovely limpet here. These are those cap-shelled snails. That's kind of a bigger one. You can also see these itty-bitty guys or gals. Focus phone. There we go. Hanging on this rock. They're gonna scooch around, munching on algae. You can probably hear the train coming by here in Tacoma. There's also these periwinkle snails. They're called checkered periwinkles for this kind of checkerboard pattern on their shell. This is a tiny marine snail. That's about as big as they get here. And this is our clue that we're in the higher intertidal zone. Another clue is we're kind of in that barnacle band. So you can see where the gear is. That would be completely underwater when the tide is high, and the water would reach up to where those barnacles start to disappear. You can also see that sometimes we get those really high tides where those logs have been pushed up onto that high edge of this riprap here. So we do know the tides can get high, so some barnacles do exist in that splash zone. but you can see definitely most of the happy barnacles are down where the tide will consistently cover them with water. Oh, it's an otter. Okay, we're gonna keep our eyes to the water. So there are river otters in the Puget Sound, which is a little confusing because you'd think the name river otter would imply that they only live in river habitats, but they love estuaries. And I wonder if I'm blocking this little friend's way. Looks like it has a big fish, something in its mouth. Cool. But yeah, there's lots of food in the estuary, which is of course a mix of saltwater and freshwater. And look at that little guy. Funny. But yeah, the estuary has lots of tasty food, whether it's the small gunnels or crustaceans living under the rocks, or it looks like in the case of this little friend, a nice big long something. And I'm seeing the seagull is also getting interested in what this river otter has in tow. Might be kind of pestering to that otter, looking for a free snack, huh? Whee! Oh, and another seagull coming in hot. All right, well, okay, it's a little beyond my view, so we'll come back to the rocks here. And maybe we'll flip a couple nice head-sized rocks. I am seeing evidence of animals. So here's the casing of a banded tube worm, or Spiochitopterus. This normally would be kind of stuck in the sand. Probably this end would be sticking out. And there's a worm that lives inside this tube that it builds. And this focuses, offers protection for that worm as they're buried in the sand during the low tides. And then when the tide comes up, they're able to reach out their feeding tentacles and have some snacks. I guess I don't know it's a guy, Howard. I will use more gender inclusive language. Good call. So, yeah, little worm casing here. I'm guessing this worm got to be somebody's snack. But that's kind of a fun thing, especially in more sandy habitats. We might look over here and see if we can see any of those little, it almost looks like straws sticking out of the mud. That would be our nice worm habitat. Of course, we are still in this higher intertidal zone, so the worms tend to be in a lower zone, so they're probably deeper than we're able to see at this moment. The tide is going out right now, so while the lowest of the low tides happen at night in the winter, we do get low tides during the day. They just aren't as extreme typically. So again, we're gonna come back over here because these look like some promising rocks to flip over. Again, we're gonna flip over rocks that are going to be easy to return. A big rock like this, I could sure hork over if I wanted to, but being able to set it down gently and not hurt anything that's below, as well as not hurt myself, is an ideal. So we're gonna leave those big rocks stay and maybe take this nice little one here and flip it over and see indeed we have some short crab friends. Hello. They're all scuttling away. Come hang out with me. Okay, you're gonna think my boots protection. Love it. All right. So here's a green shore crab. That's actually kind of a green color. I will say that color is not always the best identifying feature of these animals. What I like to do is, of course, keep them low to the ground because they are scuttly. But I like to look at their legs, and I can see that they have these little hairs on their legs. Another common name for these little buddies is the hairy shore crab, based on this feature. And that is your clue that this is indeed a green shore crab, even if the color of this little guy isn't green. Now I am saying guy because I can look at the belly flap and notice that it's a skinny pointy flap that doesn't extend over to the legs. Kind of looks like a little column there. This right here by my thumb. That is the clue that this is a male, and this is something, a feature you can use to tell all species of crabs whether they're male or female. Females would have a big wide belly flap, and that's where she would hold all the eggs, and those eggs would hatch and be planktonic for a while until the crab develops into something like this. This, of course, is a pretty mature green shore crab here, and they have to molt, so it will shed its outer hard shell to grow a new shell. So sometimes you find crabs that are soft and squishy like a marshmallow. You want to be really careful with those ones because they are very susceptible to being crushed, and their shells, of course, will harden over time after a couple days, starting with their pinchers and then their mouth parts, because those are, you know, defense and being able to eat are important. I'm also going to peek over here. We have a marine seabird. I'm noticing, oops, thought I should focus on it. So this is a goldeneye, and I'm waiting to get a good look at that white spot on its face. If it's a circle, like a little dot, it's the common goldeneye. I like to think dot common to remember that. And if it's more like an apostrophe, it's the Barrow's goldeneye. So we'll wait for this diving bird to pop back up. These are species that are our clue that it is winter time here in the Pacific Northwest, because we only get these animals in the more winter months. And it looks like we have that comma. So this is a Barrow's goldeneye, which now it's not looking at us. So come on, turn, turn. If we had better light, we might even see the fact that its eye is indeed golden. Cool. Maybe it is a dot. Okay, maybe it's a common goldeneye. I might have been wrong. We'll go double check the bird book. All right. So back to the crabs hanging out here. I want to see if we can find a lady crab in her big wide belly flap. Doo, 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 doo. Oh my gosh, there's some amphipods. Eee! I'm zoomed in for you. The necktie of the male crabs. I like to say more of a honey pot for the females because they're sweet like honey. All right, crabs, where did you go? Might have to flip another rock. Okay, as a good beach etiquette move, I am gonna put this rock back in place how I found it. Good, good. And let's keep peeking around. How about this one? Let's see. Oh, that's a nice big checkered periwinkle. All right, we have ourselves a lady shore crab. Again, now you can see, compared to the male crab we saw earlier, her belly flap or abdominal flap extends all the way over to her legs. And this is where we would see if she was carrying eggs. It almost looks like she's holding a raspberry under that flap. So sometimes you'll hear people say, oh, the crab is buried. And that just means it's holding eggs. Another word for that is gravid. They have a lot of weight, the gravitas of carrying hundreds of little baby crabs. This little lady doesn't seem to be holding eggs at the moment because that flap is nicely flush against her body. I do love right now just seeing her little eyes on those stalks. That's an awesome adaptation for these animals that can bury in the sand. You don't want those sensitive organs to get too disturbed. I'm disturbed by the plane. But those eyes, being on stalks is a way for her to still have her eye sense without getting them buried in the sand. And we've got Meredith tuning in. She's come birding with us out at the Purdy Sand Spit. And hi, Donovan. What a good team. I'm glad that they're still out looking at some seabirds. I'd be curious if you've had any seabird highlights lately. Seen anything cool? I know I get really excited when I see things like the harlequin ducks. The males have such beautiful blue and kind of a cinnamon color. I think they're so gorgeous. And again, we're going to take a look at those legs. Notice that they're hairy. So this is indeed the hairy shore crab. You can see kind of more of a mottled color. Still kind of green. But we do see these species having all sorts of different color morphs. So sometimes they're a more white color. Sometimes they're even purple, which is confusing because there is the purple shore crab. I love them because they have polka dots on their pinchers, which is a good way to help you determine who they are or what species. But lots of good stuff. So yeah, for those of you tuning in, I would love to know where you're watching from. It is a gorgeous day here in Tacoma. So if you haven't been out and about, this is my encouragement for you to go take an adventure stroll, go have some wonders, make some observations, go notice some things outside. We're gonna look at this big rock because I bet it has maybe some new animals we haven't seen yet, like the mussel. I don't know about you, but I think mussels are most delicious in butter. I like to protect the things I like to eat. Of course, these little ones are too tiny to be on your dinner plate. Here's some bigger ones that are also still small. These are bivalves, and that means they have two shells that close up. We just recently collected a bunch of mussels for the Mussel Watch program throughout the winter. Oops, moving a little snail around. But yeah, throughout the winter, community scientists throughout the South Sound all got together, put out these cages, or we like to call them cribs, and the mussel cribs were out in various locations all throughout the South Sound, and maybe even San Juan's. I'll have to relook at the map, but over 100 different sites where these mussels sat out doing their filter feeding thing, where they're collecting in their gut any harmful contaminants, and then those mussels are analyzed to see what the water quality is in there, because I'm too far in the rocks. But it's interesting. So while we're out here doing Blue Water Task Force, which is collecting a water sample where we get this little snapshot of a monthly view of water quality at the beach, the Mussel Watch program is a more long-term study of how water quality is doing throughout the Sound by looking at what these lovely mussels are picking up. And so that's kind of thanks, mussels, for donating your body to science. We appreciate you. And we appreciate all those people who go out and volunteer their time. And of course, this is another one of those programs that's taking place in the dark of the night, because you need those wintertime low tides in the evening to do the work. So early February, all those mussels, everywhere where we collected, I think only 3 were lost to 2 storms, and the rest will be analyzed, and we'll be, looking forward to those results coming in soon. Coming in hot like the seagull. And by seagull, I mean gull. Probably medium-sized gull. And thanks, Meredith, for the great bird list. What a fun set of sights. Well, cool. Well, with that, cheers to the mussels doing water quality. Cheers to our Blue Water Task Force team out doing water quality. I'm gonna get back to the lab and meet up with a student from the Science and Math Institute, or SAMI. We are so grateful to that crew there, and they're donating their lab space for us to be able to analyze these samples that are collected for, again, Enterococcus, making sure there's low levels of harmful bacteria in the places that people like to play. And then, of course, the Washington Health Department takes over in the summertime with their beach program. And we got to talk with them recently because we had such high bacteria hits at the Theophos site. And they indeed informed us that there was a sewage spill there. So it is, you know, just a snapshot in time of how things are doing. So we can't guarantee that the places you're swimming are safe or unsafe, but we can kind of look at those patterns over time and see how things are. So those results will be posted closer to the end of the week. And if we have any high hits, we resample as soon as possible. And then we get to talk to the Washington Health Department if things are still seeming gross. And so with that, let's go find out and see how our sites are doing this month. I'll put a link into the comments of a page where you can tap into those. So thank you to everyone who tuned in. Meredith, Howard, thanks for your comments and questions. Donovan out there, cheers to you all, and have yourself a lovely rest of your day. And as always, learn, have fun.